I can come back. Yeah, it takes a while until the recording starts. Now it's fine. It should be working. I have to stop. I can come back. So I'm back now, and I start sharing the screen, as you know that. So you can see it. Okay, here we are, and I share the screen with all of you, so we can start with the presentation. I hope you have access to the slides. I published them this morning on Moodle. You should view not only the slides, but also the comments I've written underneath of the slides. Sometimes it is helpful to watch there, because I write some stuff which may be relevant for your knowledge. I think you're all aware and agree with me that being literate tomorrow will be totally different than being literate today, especially regarding to digital literacy, to new literacies. The fact is actually that this field is evolving rapidly, which means if you were able to write an email 20 years ago, then you were digital literate. Nowadays, writing an email is something for like sort of kindergarten kids, and we have a lot of other skills we need to really acquire in order to say that we are digital literate, or in order, as you should have be the case, can say that you can not only are not aware and not literate, but can also teach or support some kids or adults in their process of enhancing digital literacies. So the thing is evolving very fast. Yes, last week we were talking about assessment, and of course assessment for us as teachers, as supporter, as supervisor is something quite relevant. And of course, being able to assess digitally is part of the digital literacies for us. So that's why I actually mentioned it, and I give you homework related to assessment. On the other hand, we don't have to be really like arrogant, meaning or thinking that what we are assessing in a digital way may be objective or may be reliable. Actually, per se, assessing an assessment is something which is per se not reliable or objective. It can be a bit more or a bit less, but objective at all, it's impossible, because we judge by assessing. We make a judgment related to something. We think it's relevant or not. We are never sure that we really assess what we really want to assess. It's quite a difficult task. So I think it's important for you as teacher, but also for you as student, that if a teacher assesses you, there is always a bias. There is always a potential for mistakes. And of course, not at university level, HKU has a totally objective and reliable assessment, but all the others don't. Of course, I'm kidding. Be aware of that. And of course, the personal impression, even if it's online, even if it's multiple choice, there is no really total reliability. Nevertheless, we need to assess. And as we have seen last session, assessment can not only be from teacher to students, but assessment is rather also very important if you have student to student or learner to learner. If you have, that's a peer assessment. If you have like student to teacher, or if you have self-assessment. And we also learned that assessment, whether it is at the end of a learning phases or in between, there's a difference. We talk about summative and formative. We discussed about that. You are aware of it. Some of you are teachers, so you do assess a lot formative and hopefully not so much a lot formative and hopefully not so much summative. It is relevant being able to know about the tools which are available online. We started discussing this topic on a quite low level, entry level. Of course, nowadays with sophisticated e-learning mechanisms and tools, there is sort of learning analytics coming into play, especially if you scale up the learners. If you think if you have groups of 1,000, 10,000, 20,000, then it's becoming difficult to assess manually. And then there is like sort of data analytics helping you to situate the stage of any students, the preferences of any student, in order really to offer an individual and appropriate learning experience, which is something crucial, as we know that learning is something happening usually individually in the heads of the participants. So be aware, assessment is something we just scratch the surface of that topic. It's a big thing, especially this emerging fields of learning analytics combined with artificial intelligence. These elements will evolve rapidly in the next 10 years. Well, I'm mentioning it and I have to laugh a bit about what I'm saying, because especially related to artificial intelligence, I think it was almost 30 years ago that a lot of scientists said that artificial intelligence will evolve rapidly, and that was 30 years ago. And now I'm saying the same thing as an old guy. And I'm aware that also that what I'm saying to make predictions is difficult. But nevertheless, a lot of money is put into artificial intelligence, into intelligent tutoring, into like sort of learning analytics, which means that in this field, I think quite something will happen. That was a quick recap about the topics of last week. Let's go and have a look how you managed to create assessment. Please, when you present your tasks, we will go from 1 to 6 related to the group numbers this time. You remember the last time we switched from whatever related to the moment when you published on your results on Moodle. Now we start with group 1 and we go through till group 6. Please mention what specific literacy you evaluate with your tool. So which means now say, okay, maybe I'm focusing rather on this literacy, or I'm focusing rather on this literacy. It must not necessarily be a new literacy, but just mention it in your presentation. And maybe it's also relevant to have a look at the type of assessment. Is it rather a formative assessment? Is it rather a summative assessment? Or is it, and then discuss about, is it like sort of a self-assessment? Is it something which is like from teacher to learner, from facilitator to student? Or is it something which happens between peers? All these assessment types have different goals, but all of them are relevant for deep learning, for efficient and efficacious development of specific literacies. Okay, that's it for the moment from my side. I would like to start to pass over to group number 1 for the presentation of their results about assessments using digital tools. And I stop the screen sharing, and I hope someone will take over of group 1.
Okay. Let me see, I'll step in here and we'll see.
Thank you, Dee.
Great, so, sorry.
I think the transmission
no problem. Okay, so a quick little look.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, or I think all can see your screen, and I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. So just a quick little jump in, first of all, to our e-portfolio, where we've aligned what we're going to cover in today's particular presentation. We've run through our page and we've listed out the different type of assessments. We've got our link for our Google form, our rubric, and the checklist. So right. We all had different little tasks to do. We all combined quite well. With the, probably easier just to run through, if you can see my screen here, we've divided it into, we had a rubric and we divided it into 5 different criterion.
Right.
And we aligned each particular criterion with one of the elements from the UNESCO documents on digital, the digital framework for assessing or for planning out content. So we've got creativity and concepts, and with that we linked in developing digital content and integrating and re-elaborating digital content. Our selection of artifacts, we came from the first, the first elements within the framework, which was information data literacy, with knowledge and learning reflection, we figured it was closely aligned with netiquette, and the integration of technology came from the first one, devices and software operation. The last one was important, but it's not covered a huge amount. It's the copyright and licenses. So if we take a quick look here, this was our assessment. It could either be a formative or a summative assessment, in that, like what you were saying, learning digital tools and learning digital presentation is an ongoing life learning activity. So what we're good at today and what we're learning today, hopefully we can use tomorrow, but we have to be always considering how we can improve ourselves. So with that in mind, the idea was that, like we are normal students, and we may have read over the UNESCO framework of what we should be doing, but because we're very busy, it's easy for us to forget after 1 week or 2 weeks. So this was very much a reminder that after we've produced a website or any kind of a digital artifact, that we remind ourselves once again what we should be looking at, what particular skills we should be looking at improving, and whether we would figure out how we have evolved, and whether we are now either an expert, proficient, apprentice, and novice. So we found that this was a pretty good way of self-assessing, whereas the rubric, the teacher's rubric, might be going from excellent, good, satisfactory, and poor. A student doesn't need to decide whether their skills are poor. So novice, meaning new to the form, I think was quite good. The idea here is that the student reads what the skills should be, and very important, they have their own reflection on how they can improve on what they did, and maybe next time around when they build their next artifact, it's going to be bigger and better. That's the idea. I'm not going to run through it very much, but we've got maybe three or four questions for each competence area, and each competence area is aligned to one of the competency points from our rubric, if that's okay. So don't want to go through it too much. An interesting point is, whereas at the beginning it was very much a formative, letting the people know what, letting the students know what they should be thinking about. Towards the end, it's a bit more specific towards building the e-portfolio or the website, and it's more specific about the particular things that we should be looking for in a particular website. Obviously, it will depend on the artifact. If it was making memes or making a podcast, you would change this particular area. So that's the full assessment.
Sorry,
And then when you submit at the end, there's also a link.
The last sentence was not
clear.
Just repeat the last sentence. It was like,
oh, sorry. After you submit the assessment, you're given a message, obviously thanking you very much, and then you're given a link to be able to go and inspect that UNESCO document once again, to be able, and you're reminded about how you should continue your particular efforts to upskill yourself. So it is an assessment, but at the same time too, it's a reminder that that we as students need to continuously revise and revisit these competencies and these skills. So sorry, I've kind of talked a little bit there. Looking a little bit further, sorry if I've lost it. Here is our rubric. Okay, so the rubric which was created, as I said, was from excellent, good, satisfactory, and poor. This is very much a rubric maybe for the teacher to be looking at, or it could be provided to the student as well. Again, along with the criterions of selection of artifacts, creativity, knowledge and learning outcomes. And then the final part of our assessment was the creation of a checklist. which was used, which a student would use after each particular type of creation of and completion of an assessment, on what they should be thinking about, how they should be thinking about building things, or programming, or constructing, whatever it might be. So these, and we have, of course, the references at the end as well. So that can all be found here under New Literacies and Assessment in our learning outcomes in our ePortfolio. And that's it. I think that's all I can recall. I probably have forgotten something, so I do apologize.
Just want to provide some more information that our checklist is clickable, and at the end it can calculate the overall score. So it's kind of interactive, and we use code to make this checklist. So it should involve technology.
Thank you very much. I think you mentioned two very important things. First of all, that one assessment may have two direction. One may be the formative part, which means you can use an assessment in a formative way. And by the way, why don't using the same assessment also in a summative way at the end of the course? So actually the students can really have a look from the beginning what they should learn. And of course, if the assessment is just checking boxes, then they can learn just on question 4, I have to check on point A, and question 5 and point B. That should not be really then something which is to go there. But if you really also have like some open questions where students should discuss or think about their development, their stage. So actually by having like sort of a formative assessment, which is used at the end, maybe the same or slightly different also for the end assessment, that could be something where students really learn to learn about really what is the goal, what is the teacher's goal, what is the improvement stage. And the other thing, we're discussing about different learning stages, development stages of some skills and competencies, how you mentioned in your Google form assessment. This stages can be shown at the beginning of the learning phase and at the end and in between. So which means a formative assessment can be taken 3 times in a row. And then, of course, it is important to compare the development of the specific skills. So maybe in the first phase, you will just focus on one literacy, and then on the second phase, on the second literacy, and then at the third phase, you just mix up and try to combine the increasement or combine the different literacies and increase your literacy. Then you showed the rubrics with the teacher, where you mentioned that actually the target audience for this rubrics could be the teacher and the students. Something very relevant actually for learning and for skill development is actually working with such rubrics with the students from the beginning of the learning phase, which means you should have your rubrics ready at the beginning of the course and then discuss it or whatever, assess with the same rubrics at the end. And the student should participate in the discussion where you go through the different rubrics and what you want to bring them to, which means they're related to being able to create artifacts. So it means you have the rubrics, which is excellent. Excellent is being able to create a highly qualitative, a high standard artifact, which addresses specific literacy and addresses the specific goal and the specific target audience in this and this and this way. So if you talk to your students when this course is starting about what you want to bring them to, and you show exactly what is good, what is sufficient, and what is really not good enough, so they can really try to really level themselves during the course. And that is something which has been proven to be quite efficient, especially if it turns to development of any literacy. I'm not talking just about new literacy. So using such rubrics, not only for the teacher and at the end of the lessons or of the course, is something important. On the other hand, which has shown to be very efficient, is not only to show the rubrics, but to discuss the rubrics with the learners. Means like negotiating, what do you think is good from my point of view? Why do I think that this is good as a teacher? And then face it to the students and ask them, do you really understand what I mean with that? So discussing, negotiating, or talking at least about the specific rubrics and the qualities like means the level of development, is something which makes them aware of something which may be of their stage. Asking someone, are you novice? Well, I think related to digital literacy, I am novice, but it's my point of view, personal point of view, because I compare myself with, I don't know, like the very high professionals. So for the students, they may think, well, I'm quite good at that. But then, of course, they have to read, if they read the rubrics, and being quite good at that means that you can do and you can perform and you have this and this and this. And then the student, the learner is aware that can self-evaluate from the beginning and really can specifically work on a trajectory which is like predefined by the teacher. So really talking with, using such rubrics is something very important. And such rubrics, in fact, can also be technologically supported by such checklists, which means the checklist you have done is also something we can really relate and train the teacher, train the students or the learners to be aware of what you're pointing at when you are talking at school. So actually you created something which is, from my point of view, relevant, not only from the point of, from an assessive point of view at the end of the course, but as a tool helping students not to read this abstract rubrics once in a while, but to quickly click through the things. What does it mean? I am really there. And then, of course, what is very important, if you use this these checklists more than once during a learning curriculum, it's important that the results of this checklist should be recorded, and not just for you as a teacher, but for the learner itself. So he or she can really see a sort of a development by clicking quickly through after, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 lessons, if you have a curriculum of 20 lessons, and then see if there is something which is develops, or if something regresses, which means, oh, at the beginning, I was good at that. How come now I think I'm so bad at it? And this sort of reflection helps increasing metacognitive skills. And these metacognitive skills are really relevant for such development of literacies and competencies and skills. So anyway, so you see the tools you presented are actually nice and good, and you see how they could be used really also in a broader way. I think I mentioned it now. I may mention one or the other point also for the other assessment types. Let's go to session to group 2 if there are no other questions. Please, someone of group 2, take the microphone and share the screen.
Yes, hello, I'm group 2, Gemini from group 2. So let me share my screen with you first. Let's see. Okay. Yes. Okay. Do you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So first of all, okay, in this presentation, so actually the assessment tools, we have used the 2 Google Form and rubric that's suggested by our teacher. And also one more new tool that we try to use is the quizzes. Okay, so let me, maybe I will move to a different tool and then at the same time to introduce to you all. Okay, the first one is the assessment with the Google Form. So actually Google Form is a free online tool that allows you to create many different kind of formats of assessment or even surveys or course evaluation or short quiz. So the use of the Google Form you can see the interface actually when you are going to you use it or to create an assessment. It's very simple and then easy. So I can say it's user friendly. And also, so we may create the quiz or assessment in a short time. And then you will see there can be you can choose different format. We can have multiple choice questions or short questions to let the students to think more about the questions. And then also we have the chatbots. Okay, so that here we can make sure that student maybe for some questions, maybe there are some points, then we can make sure that our student knows most of the points. Okay, they know which one is correct, which one is wrong. Okay, so they can check out here. Okay, and then at the end, when they submit the Google form, it's good that at the Google form we can have a report at the end, so teacher can take a look and at all the answer from all the students, so that we can know actually which questions will have okay, maybe the accuracy is the highest or the least. So it's really good for formative assessment, so that the teacher can at the end have an evaluation with the classmates, with the students, and so that to share, okay, how to do it better, and then may know what's the problem, the learning problem of the students. Okay, and then here the other one is the rubrics. So before we show the rubrics, okay, actually we also provide different the description of the different items. So for our assessment, sorry, we have picked the competency, actually that is the communication and collaboration. So sorry, this is for e-portfolio. Yeah, sorry. So for rubric, okay, so when we to evaluate the use of the literacy, the digital literacy, so you will see we have 6 components here. So we try to have different description on the 6 components, so students, they can have a very clear direction, okay, on the requirements of teachers, and also they will know that okay, what's the purpose on doing this work or artifacts. Okay, and then after they read their description, okay, they start to go to the rubrics. So the rubrics, they will see here outstanding performance, general, elementary, or a need improvement, different stage. So we'll get different marks. Here will be provide a more clear picture. So let them know how could they get highest marks. So they can just like a checklist at the same time. So they will check, so maybe we still need to do some more improvement on some part, so that we can jump from score 3 points to 4 points. Okay, so I think rubrics is really really good and should be provided, of course, at the beginning, before you ask your class, your students to do the work, and then have to maybe go through with them, if you've got time, okay, go through with them clearly, so that they can maybe ask questions or can discuss with other students on different items more. Okay, all right, and then we will then move to the assessment with the quizy. Okay, so this actually is a kind of a game-based learning form of a platform, okay, a kind of tool, but actually there have a different mode for you to pick. Okay, so maybe you can use it as a live quiz. Okay, so students, they can play with each other during the lesson at the same time, or actually they can have some other different mode, like the team mode or classic mode. They can play at their own pace, individually or grouped by team, or also can be as a test mode, that is to do it as a serial assessment. So I think the teacher can be more flexible at this. So how to make use of this tool. And also at the end, also this tool also can help to generate the results, the total result, the results of the whole class. Also, I think very important that is the teacher can also check how the performance, not only the overall performance, but also the performance of each question, so that the teacher also can know the weakness or the strength of the students. Okay. All right. So because of the time limit, I'm not going to show you how the quiz one. Chrissy one. Do you want to take a look?
Of course, we can have a look. I will have a look as well in your portfolio. I think one thing to mention is thank you very much, first of all, for the specific rubrics and the way. Oh, we are in Quizlet now. Okay, thank you. You can show.
Yeah. Okay. Do you see the screen of the Chrissy now?
Yeah, I can see a screen.
Okay, so I will start and let you see maybe the first questions. So yeah. So you will see a very colorful background, okay, with music. You can stop it if you don't want to listen to the music, and then you maybe, for example, okay, the people, okay, I just chose this, okay. Okay, so if you make it correct, okay, you get a point, and also you can set a time limit or not. So the fastest you answer, okay, and then the higher marks you get. All right. Okay. Okay, maybe I stop here.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So one thing to mention that quizzes is something very common. Gamification of learning trajectories is very high, and of course works motivational and helps to be engaged from the beginning to the end. One thing I would like to mention related to quizzes and gamification, especially, or assessment in general, is actually the efficiency of assessment, especially if we talk about formative assessment, is correlated to the way you manage wrong questions or wrong answers, not wrong questions. So if I ask you, like we make an example, elementary school, they have to give the results of the calculation 3 plus 5. And of course, all of you know 3 plus 5 is 8. And what about if then you have distractors, which may be 9, 11, 15. And this is something relevant, actually, if you talk about assessment, how you manage these distractors and how you manage especially the wrong questions, the wrong answers from the students. So, of course, if someone writes 7, 3 plus 5, 7, then it's quite difficult to do something with it, because actually just maybe something 3 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, they had some mess up with their fingers. And the fact is actually how to deal with it. So if someone writes 7, usually all the assessment tools you are working on now, the quizzes and the tools, if you get the wrong question, the wrong answer, you receive either like sort of a negative feedback, a sound which is wah, or you receive like sort of the correct answer, but you don't know why you made this mistake. And this is something crucial in order to improve your skills and your competencies. If you make a mistake, actually a good learning system, a good teacher tells you why you made this mistake. And they made you the example by maybe you didn't count, you forgot to lift one finger, that's why you counted 7 instead of 8. So the origin of the mistake. So in order next time you calculate 3 plus 5, you really be aware that you count right the 3 and you count right the 5, and then you count right both of them, because it's an addition in between. So the origin of the mistake is something very relevant for the increase or improvement of skills. So if you have the case, the result 3 plus 5 equal 15, what may there be the mistake of the students? What explication can you have for that, or explanation can you have for that sort of mistake as a teacher? Anyone has an idea? Why has a student written 15? 3 plus 5. Especially we're talking about elementary school. Just take the microphone or write in the chat, whatever.
Multiplication, they don't understand or see properly the addition.
This is a plus and this is a multiplication. This is additional multiplication. Actually, turning around this sign by, I would say, 30, 40 degrees, 45 degrees, means that actually the result is totally a different one. And for pre-elementary kids, just being able to analyze this icon is also a skill they need to have in order to be able to solve this question. And actually, giving them the answer like wrong, or giving the answer the right answer, doesn't help the kids to improve in their skill of being able to analyze the sign in between the two numbers. So which means dealing with the wrong, or giving an appropriate response to the wrong answers, is very important for improving the skills. And not only just checking if it's correct, and also just giving the correct answer if the answer is wrong. Because there's no improvement by just knowing I did a mistake. Maybe I can figure out by seeing the right answer what was wrong. But most of the time, you just start learning the right answer without being aware of the process. And we don't want to foster that. We want to have a look at the process of learning and want to have a look where the mistakes are. What does it mean for technological enhanced assessment? The quality of any assessment you do is actually directly correlated with the quality of the quality of the way you deal wrong answers by the students. And that is something which, of course, nobody does, because what is difficult? It is difficult to deal with all the wrong questions and propose a potential mistake, because sometimes there are 10 mistakes, reasons for the mistake. Dealing with that mistakes increases the quality and the efficiency and the effectiveness of such specially formative evaluation really exponentially. But of course, the work behind of that is much bigger, because creating a question and clicking the right answers, then and maybe proposing a right answer, that's easy. But creating a question, proposing a right answer, having appropriate distractors, we were talking about distractor last time, and then dealing with the wrong answers the way that this person who clicks the wrong answer gets an added value by the feedback she gets. This is something very time consuming. And I'm quite sure you never found such assessment when you are clicking through all these assessment tools and quizzes, whatever you found online. But this is one thing which you should really be aware as a new literacy skilled educator, a supporter, tutor, whatever. Dealing with the wrong answer in an assessment is so crucial. It can be done, of course, in a totally electronic way. It can also be done in a partially electronic way, which means if you make a Kahoot with the class or with whatever students, then of course you have the results, who clicked, how many students clicked this answer, how many students clicked the other answer, wrong answer. So if you detect that many students click a wrong answer, then it's up to you to go back and really take the time to ask, what happened there? What did you think? Where was the mistake? And how can you really improve by next time not making the same mistake? And usually this is totally neglected, because you all want to have the best score, and you just give a whatever badge to the best one, and all the mistakes is forgotten for a Kahoot. And that is something which is actually from the pedagogical point of view, from the skill development point of view, quite crap. So it's just time consuming, and it's really, of course, it may be motivational because it's fun and you don't need to read, you don't need to do some boring stuff, but the added value for the learning, for the increasement of literacy is not that high. But discussing about the wrong things and why it is wrong, if you do it as a teacher, it can be individual and it's very important, but even better is if some of the peers who had the right answer goes back to the one who had this type of wrong answer and may explain what mistake they may have done. There you have actually the best improvement of skill. And if you really start to implement such a culture in your group or in your classes, then this is something which might be quite efficient. So dealing with wrong answers, this is one thing which can improve a lot the learning outcome and lead to deep learning. And this implements such elements digitally with digital tools is quite difficult. Not many tools provide the opportunities to deal with wrong answers in a good way, which means give some ideas about where the mistake might have been done. Okay, so if you choose good tools for assessment, especially if you want to have a formative assessment, have a look about the way you can deal with the wrong answers. If there is the opportunity to really have sort of a text in there mentioning what potential mistake could have been done, then it's a sign that this tool is, from the pedagogical point of view, better designed than the tool which only gives you the opportunities to click the right answer, and for every wrong answer you get like a sound or a thumbs down or whatever. This is not efficient. Okay. Thank you very much, group 2. We switch over to group 3 now.
Yes, here's group 3. Okay, I shared my screen. Okay, can all of you see the website?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, for our group 3, we chose the topic of this risk activities. We chose the information and data literacy, and so that the 4 activities, the task we need to do, we actually quite similar with the group 2, because we have Google quiz assessment, the rubrics, and the another assessments tool. We chose quizzes. Okay, so but the topic we chose Google the Google quiz we do inside, and for the Google form quiz, we actually measuring the student with the more deep question, more deep learning about the information and data literacies, like how to search the data in the library, and how to use different the description of the information literacy. And first, we will have give videos to the student, and they after they take a look in the video and just answer the following question. Some of them is the multiple choice question, this to give student a basic test to know how much they know about this topic. And finally, we will got 2 open-end questions in order to have a deep understanding how students know about this topic. Okay, for the rubrics, we need to have a e-portfolio assessment rubrics, and we measure the e-portfolio in these 4 dimensions, and each dimension we got a clear definition in front of the rubrics. And on the scale, we also give each scale about a complete description, how they can get this grade and how they can got another grade in different categories. So all of them is detailed listed in the rubrics table. Okay, and then the first one is the another assessment tool. We also chose the quizzes, and we clearly mentioned that why we chose quizzes. As you see, it is fun and engaging. You can see in the previous group they show we also got a quizzes assessment, and the quiz assessment they have background music, and they have some funny response after the answer is chosen, so which can give the student a feeling of fun, and they can more attention in the learning. Also, the user interface of the quizzes is simple to use, and it can reflect on what they have learned, because we can directly look how much question they got correct, and we can get how much they understand in this topic. And also it can act as a competition in a real-time classroom, so that the student can have a competition with each other, and they will more focus on their learning. And finally, is user friendly in the store game data for analysis. Is user friendly. The student can use these tools to get the assessment easily, and the teacher can get the game data for analysis easily because they can give the analysis after the test, after the student got the test. So maybe I show 1 or 2 questions in the quizzes because it's quite similar with the previous demonstration. I close the music, but it actually have music. Okay. Okay, then the student can choose the frame and then start the game. Okay, they have some background music in order to attract the student. If the music is too loud, you can close it off. And just fairly answer the question with this one. If this is correct, if it's incorrect, they will show the correct answer. Okay, they give some funny response, and they give a competition. They got the points. So this is some demonstration about this assessment tool, and they can save the result or they can resume again. So I don't play all the question inside this. And finally, we got as our reference the activity 4. We got a video in order to get the student know more about how assessment in the digital literacy. So this is our presentation. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Well, I won't go into the quiz here and how to deal with the wrong answers. We had that before. I would like to come back to your rubrics at the beginning of your presentation. You showed some rubrics about how to assess, like there, yeah, exactly. And I would just like you to focus on the others. If you scroll down, the rubrics related to the navigation through the hypertext. Can you show that? I think you have to scroll down again.
Oh, you mean can I describe what this category of the
just the rubrics you created for the
because this rubric actually is about the scenario which is exactly. As the activities you show.
It's fine. I just want to see the rubrics. You showed it before, the rubrics you created. Go down a bit. I think it's more down. Yeah, exactly there. So you talked there about organization and navigation, and then you say like 4 points is organized extremely effectively with sophisticated navigation. So I ask you now, as a student, what do you mean by sophisticated navigation? I am the student, you're the teacher.
Well, I may help to answer this question.
Sure.
Yeah, like for the organization navigation, we originally thought to what extent the students are able to develop their e-portfolio as a straightforward format, like easy for audience to navigate content, and it's more about the whole layout thing and the whole navigation design. It's more about how audience can easily search or figure out what they are gonna to find, like sort of thing, like guidance thing. Yeah.
So one thing why I mentioned, because actually for me, sophisticated navigation sounds like a rather abstract navigation. And what you mentioned now is the simpler, the better, the easier understandable, the better. But for me, sophisticated has another conceptual, I have another conceptual understanding. What I want to say it's not that sophisticated is wrong. I want to see that you have to create like sort of distract or rubrics elements in this matrix, which are as understandable as possible for yourself, of course, if you use it as at the end for a summative assessment. But if you use it like a sort of a formative element for this to be discussed with the class, and you mentioned that, then it should be really formulated. And it's quite difficult to do that. That's a very important and difficult part to do. Formulated that the learner, which is at the beginning of this development of the skills, can understand what you mean. So sophisticated for me as a learner who starts in creating my first e-portfolio using a hypertext, maybe okay, I need to have a lot of, the tree must be very complex, and I must be able to navigate from every page to every page in order to find everything. And, you know, and for me, this is not sophisticated actually. Well, this is sophisticated, but it's not actually something which might be relevant or good. If you think about systems, navigation systems created by whatever big companies like Apple, which are really very, they give a high importance to the customer experience. They try to simplify the navigation as much as possible. I remember the TED talk we listened last week, where you have a tablet, and with one click you go to the function you want. They called it app, and you don't have like sort of a network of a hypertext where you go one menu point deeper, you have a different option, and you go further down, and you have other options. And if you want to go back, you go always one step back. So this might be a sophisticated navigation, but this is one which is, from the point of view of the user, far too complex. So understand what I mean? So just make sure that the rubrics, the cells within this matrix of rubrics you use is very clearly understandable from the point of view of the learner. On the other hand, you have on the next cell, you have organized effectively with sound navigation. I don't understand the term. Actually, that was my first question I wanted to ask. What do you mean by sound navigation?
Yes, I think like just as you mentioned, we're gonna just simplify this terminology a bit. Like for sound navigation, just like I just mentioned, it's like the relatively straightforward navigation, like sort of thing, straightforward guidance for the page. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking that maybe, you know, that maybe a sound navigation may be something like you hover over a link, and then by hovering, it describes what you see underneath of the page. Means if you have, like you saw, I make an example, you hover over the link, which is named by sort of a home, and then a voice comes and says, if you click on this button, you will arrive to the entrance page of this hypertext. So this could be something which really enhances the opportunity of making the navigation as simple and straightforward as possible. So I was thinking you mentioned that, but if you say sound navigation, then it's something quite specific. So I'm sure you won't do that, especially I think it's not possible doing that with Google Forms. With other web pages, it's not a big deal. So anyway, what I was thinking of, be aware of what you write there. Yes, thank you. Kila, please mute the microphone. So that is not only for this group. So really be aware, it is difficult to create these cells within the matrix of rubrics, and it is time consuming, but it is crucial to have this rubrics or these cells as specific as possible and as best understandable as possible. And this has to be adapted to the target audience. We have 3 chat points. Thanks. Yeah, okay. We go back to the next group. Please take the screen.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Nicole from Group 4. Can you hear me? Yeah,
Definitely.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to introduce the assessment tool Google Form. It is very user-friendly and easy to use. Even primary students also know how to use it. And it can be used as a quiz or a self-evaluation or data analysis. Refer to the task to let students understand what digital literacy competencies. For example, informations and data literacies, communications and collaboration skill that develops on their e-portfolios. I use this Google Form as a self-evaluation. Firstly, students answer their basic information by filling the short questions. And then I use 5-point scale questions to let students choose the answers. After they submit this form, the scores will be automatically calculated so that the students can understand how they perform after doing these evaluations. That's it. Let's move the other part to my groupmates to share the rubric and other assessment tool we have done. Thank you.
Okay, for the second part of the for the homework is the rubrics of the e-portfolio. Here we have a total of 6 categories in the rubrics. So we focus on the select of artifacts in the e-portfolio, the descriptive text for each artifacts, and their self-reflections in each section, and also the citations is very important. And the final three is the navigation, such as the user interface, the layout. Are they logically placed, or is it easy to use? And the final part is the usability and accessibility. So it focuses on the is the e-portfolio is easy to read, and the font size and font type choosing is appropriate for different areas such as headings, subheadings, and text. And for the last part, we created a form here for a formative assessment, because we believe that in a forum, students can share their understanding on the e-portfolio. After they read the e-portfolio of other groups, they may have some different understanding with the original group, so they can discuss here. And from the discussion, both group members can understand more on the artifacts. Also, for the original group or the owner of the e-portfolio, they may know that why other students will have different understanding from us, so they can discuss here. So this is what we have prepared for the homework. Oh, so
yeah, now I'm silent. Thank you very much for also this this way of understanding. Also here, I would like just to go back to your rubrics you found out for the assessment of the e-portfolio, and there are actually the two last. You have citations, and go further down. Yeah, you have navigation and usability and accessibility. So of course, I think you're aware that usability is like sort of term which describes the way the user experience, and of course navigation is one part of it. So navigation is actually a subcategory of the usability. So also there, of course, you can do it in different way, and the way you describe the usability goes in a slightly different direction as the navigation. You say the font has to be adapted, whatever their appearance must be related to the target audience. The metaphor you use and everything should be appropriate. But just be aware that also there it's very difficult even to create categories which are equal, and these are not two equal categories, because the usability is something, it's an overview, and the navigation, of course, influences the usability. You have bad navigation, you have bad usability. You have good navigation, then usability is good. So also there, creating these categories for assessment is something, not only just creating the different cells of this matrix where you say what is good and what is bad, but also even the categories is something which is challenging. And you don't have to change it at all. Actually, it's fine what you said, but just be aware that there is also something to think about. Really, does every category you want to assess really distinct? Is there a distinction between each of and every category you mentioned? If there are overlapping, like it is in this case, of course, then if you assess it especially summatively, then of course a person who has a good usability per se has a good navigation, which means the usability is valued double. So it means, so by having a good usability, you have actually per se already a lot of points if you assess it summatively, and which comes back to the fact, to what I said at the beginning of the course. It is very difficult to have an appropriate and accurate assessment. It is not reliable. It is not objective at the end of the day, because it is very difficult to use it. But still, this way of assessment shows, using rubrics shows actually, and there's a lot of literature behind of that, shows that the improvement of literacies is good, the deep learning experience is good, and actually the long-term learning experience is also good. So that's why we gain on our topic, which is learning, and we lose on the topic of like sort of, or we make it difficult to have something reliable in order to assess, so to give a mark which is at the end A+ or just B-. But at the end of the day, what is relevant for a teacher, of course, it is to get the students somewhere where they have something they can use after they have a lot of potential for using what they learned also in other fields, and not giving them a mark which is like A+. Of course, the students think differently, and especially the parents, they think differently. They say, I want to have A+ for my son, for my daughter, all the rest, I don't care, because the A+ remains, and what they learn, they forget. So that means that makes it difficult. But I know as a teacher, and some of you are, is something you know exactly, and you know this dilemma, and it is something not to take away. But be aware, for me, focusing on the development of skills is what you want to do. Okay, thank you very much. That was I think group number 5, if I'm correct. We go to group number, to the next group. I think it is group number 6.
Group number 5.
5, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I will share the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, assessment reform, yeah.
Yeah, yes. We choose the problem solving competence area, and the problem solving competence area is involves the technical problems. So here some simple questions to test if the students know how to use digital tools, and we established the rubric to access the e-portfolio content. We have several categories, including artifacts, knowledge gained, descriptive text, ease of navigation, graphic and attractiveness, mechanics, and citation. And we had total 28 scores. Yeah. And we choose this peer-ceptive as the assessment tool. This website can support the peer review. Here we can see how it works, and students can upload documents here and then review documents, back evaluations, and the system will generate grades. Yeah, actually it consists of 2 parts, peer grading and peer feedback. And we also have a YouTube reference to assessment the competence from value, attitude, skills, and knowledge. Okay, I finished.
Thank you very much. Can you just go back to the peer, I don't know, peer something? Yes, this is, yeah. Peer-ceptive.
Yeah, peer-ceptive.
Obviously, this is a tool which is not a different type of tool we didn't see before here in this group. What is the added value of this peer whatever name, Peerceptive. What do you think is, where is it efficient? Where is it good? And
黑咗直接，係啊，好似冇人講。
sorry,
we write some description here. It just engage the students to make evaluations together, so it can
Hello, actually, we would like to add on the perceptive tools. We choose this because it's, we want to use technology to make it more efficient for peers to give feedback to each others. Because we found that it's quite inconvenient if we want to give feedback to others. But with this tool, we can assign students to have different tasks very easily and efficient.
Okay. Can you make an example how it works? Did you try it out?
Oh, yeah.
So I would like to also add, so for using this peer-peer perceptive, we haven't really created the account, but we can request the demo to show you guys later. So what is special about this platform is that it combines both peer grading and the peer feedback in writing. So it's not just you know, like a MCQ questions, multiple choice, or some simple questions. So it actually combines, we would say, both summative and formative assessment. They can give the grades and also a very detailed writing feedback. And about the platform is that they can upload documents and share among themselves, so we can actually assign the participants to grade with each other's work randomly, or we can assign specifically.
Actually, I mentioned this tool because I think it can be something very nice, very sophisticated, very good. But I was wondering,
and also
I don't know the tool. Is it for free, or you have to pay subscription fees?
I can't remember. I think I used this before, so but this time I forgot to create the questions. So I think as an instructor, you can also get quantitative and qualitative data about the answers, the dynamics of each group, how they do the evaluation.
Pardon. Well, actually,
so they can, so they can give their feedback while also improve their collaborations in the meanwhile as well.
Of course, yeah, and I think this is something appropriate and good. Usually, as a teacher, you can orchestrate and organize such peer feedbacks the way we did, in a manual way. That means, you know, I tell group 2 gives a feedback to all the others. Like each group has to give a feedback. If you are 6 people, you give a feedback to 6 other groups, and then you write the feedback in the group page. This happens if you have like a group page, which is accessible to all the participants of the course. So that means this can be, all the things you can do with that tool can be orchestrated, but of course this tool takes over some management, which means it regroups the different feedbacks that you have given, so you can sort by student who has given this feedback and then give a feedback on the feedback of the students. And this is also something which may be interesting, not only grading the work which has been done, but grading the way the students can reflect among work of others, can judge the quality of other group works which has been done by the class or by the learning community. And this we come to as to like a sort of a meta grading. In order to be able to judge whether a work is good or not, you have to know the criteria, quality criteria, and you have to be sure that have sort of a type of expertise in order to know that this work they assess, and it's a peer work, a group done by peers, has a specific quality. And maybe this tool is something which helps to gather and to separate all the gradings done by the peers, which means I have the gradings done by Katerina, I have the gradings done by Weng Xiu, and the grading done by Cecilia, and I can compare judging the expertise of Katerina by having a look about how differentiated and how like relate to the rubrics we discussed before, the feedback is done. And I think, is that possible with the tool you mentioned here? The example I was doing now, is it possible to group all the feedbacks of each and every single student?
Yes, I think it is possible. Let me share my screen here. So they actually have teachers dashboard here as well. You can have the dashboard, the rubric, the students' progress. So you can see actually the students' progress, the reviews done, the feedback given, you know, the details here, and the results here.
Mm-hmm. So you see, you can really have a look at specifically on student, like, and of course, if you do such an assessment for the learners, means that you assess the quality of feedback they give, then of course such a tool may be helpful, and such a tool may really also be reliable. And of course, there
agree.
The things become complex, because then you need rubrics for the learners and rubrics for the peer feedbacks, which is actually the meta rubrics sort of. And of course, it becomes like crazy if you want to create all of them. But I can tell you there could be another way. And of course, you don't have to evaluate everything like that. It becomes quite complex. But still, this opportunity really can show a development of literacies as well. Sort of like, you know, you start with such a peer evaluation at the beginning, and then maybe the students, right, they give the feedback, good, okay, I don't know. And then you go at the end of the course, and then they say, yeah, related to digital literacy, related to information literacy, the information research has been done quite good, but the information filtering is bad. There's a lot of noise and a lot of not so much information. They should have chosen other whatever. So by the way the student gives feedback about the work of another student, you can really quite well assess the specific literacy of the student.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see from here, the on the right hand side, there is a assignment phases. So you can actually design different assignment here and give different deadlines for submission, for review, for feedback. So the feedback can actually be the feedback on the what you've mentioned on the peer assessment review comments. And then on the left hand side, we can add our rubrics into it and add the time deadline into it as well. So it's very easy to manage.
Thank you very much. And we go to the next group. Last group, group number 6.
Okay, let me share on my screen first. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So our assessment focused on the digital literacy and basically how we use the digital tools to collaborate, to communicate, and create digital content. We target in assessing secondary school students, so the assessment are designed in secondary school level. We have created 2 assessments, so we will look at the Google form first. We use Google Form to build such assessment because it is easy to use and the interface is straightforward and simple, and that everyone can pick it up as easily. There's no time constraint for the quiz, and most of the question types can be set up. This is also allow participants to be more relaxed when completing the quiz. It is flexible, many things can be customized, like we have disabled the score function to present a more casual assessment as we target to learn instead of calculating marks here. So we start with the some conceptual question first to identify which activities belong to this area. Then we come to some scenario questions, application and case study questions, how to appropriately use the tools to express one's digital literacy. Finally, we'll come to some questions related to the community and real lives. Same things will happen to our next section, which is the digital content one. I'll just, because I'll separate 2 parts. So it presented in the same structure as I've talked before. This structure allows participants to clarify their concept first, then think about the real life application and behaviors. Correct answers are also provided afterwards to let the student to learn from mistakes. Next, I'll be showing another one. So this is a quiz composed by Kahoot. It is more fun and more fancy with background music, such that it presents the quiz as a game. Something. I don't know why I cannot click this one.
I don't know how to click there.
I think it's because I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, and you have the captioning there. Maybe you scroll up or down, or you go screen a bit left or right. Yeah, now you should be able to click. No, I don't know.
Let me stop sharing first.
Yeah, sure. Maybe you can choose and then reshare. Okay, now you have to reshare because we don't see it.
Okay. Sorry, please wait.
Well, we can hear the music. Maybe that's enough.
Because my screen got some problem. I'm using MacBook.
Don't worry, don't worry. I think Kahoot is something all of us are aware of how it works. Can you maybe emphasize what is the real, what you want to, what sort of assessment you try to practice by using this Kahoot?
Yeah, it got time limit for each question. Okay. I want to share my screen, but it keeps.
Right, no problem. I think we can have a look in your portfolio. Everyone and each of us could go there and
I know, but I cannot share my browser. I don't know why. Maybe can some of my group mates share browser for me?
I think that should be possible. And you would like to show what, like your portfolio, I guess, to be precise for your group members. What should I share? Okay. Here we are. Yeah, there. Yeah. Okay, there you go to the Kahoot. I think you want to go there, or? Yeah, now here it works. Yeah.
Finally. So you got time limit for each question. So we think that it is better to make some shorter and easier question, just like true or false. Mm-hmm. So you will show a correct answer afterwards if you got a wrong answer. So you can compare the score with your peers here. It is actually more like a game with some scores. Students can play with their peers and compare their marks and learn together. So I think that's all for the assessment. So we'll now talk about the rubrics of assessing the content of the e-portfolio. Mm-hmm. These are the rubrics that we have proposed. We take several references from the assessment rubrics of some college and school e-portfolio. The first thing is the artifacts that we are supposed to build an e-portfolio with digital contents, meeting the requirements of each task and the purpose to show our understanding. And the second thing is content and reflection. We must ensure the appropriateness and logic of our content to effectively present our works. Then it comes to design. It relates to the organization of content and user interface, whether the content can be read easily, whether the format is consistent, etc. We've put digital components on certain purpose, and there should be no redundant and fancy thing without meaning in this portfolio. Then we narrow down to navigation. It is about the functional UI works, whether the links and button works, whether the UI components placed in appropriate position, etc. So as you can see that each of our page got a back to home button, allowing viewer to get back to the home page. I guess this is one of the example of navigation. The last thing will be writing conventions and copyrights, and consider the appropriate usage of words and grammar, citation, and licensed resources, so as to ensure the quality of our work. We got a scale of 1 to 4 points for each category, and some to a full mark of 24. Last but not least, we recommend a video regarding a new literacy and assessment. This video discusses the teaching of new digital literacy in classrooms. It suggests the situated learning that is assisting students to put new literacy in practice. It is the best way for students to acquire skills and educators to assess students' literacies. Educators can provide tools to students to navigate the complexity of new literacy and technology, to let them interact with digital technology and analyze the works by themselves. Students are encouraged to collaborate and share their works with peers, with teachers and parents to effectively evaluate and improve their learning. I think that's all.
Thank you. May I have a question? Just first of all, the Powtoon animation at the end. Is it something you found on the web or you created yourself?
No, it's something we found on YouTube. We think that it is quite a good video for those educators and students to know how they can learn literacy. Yeah.
Perfect way. Of course, you take everything and you cite it. That's not a big deal. Just make sure that it's something. Of course, it is. I think it's created by some educators, so it's something you can exceed easily. Can we go back to the rubrics again? As the others, you did a good work as well. Actually, congratulations to all the groups. One thing I would like you to maybe think of till the next session. I think we discussed quite a lot now about this creation of this rubrics matrix, the way of you differentiate the categories and the way you formulate the elements of the matrix related to the points you give as assessment. And of course, you have to be aware that such rubrics are used at the beginning, in the middle, at the end of such learning phase by the teacher, but also may be used by the students, which means the lower educated the learners are, the more complex it becomes to formulate such cells of this matrix. Because if you talk to primaries, if this matrix is used for primary school students, then of course such long texts are totally inappropriate because they take them too long to read. It's easier if you talk about like university students and teachers or whatever, university students. So the thing is actually, I don't know, group 6, what sort of target audience did you address? Is that secondary school or rather?
Yeah, secondary school students.
Yeah. So actually there, if you have a look at the terms you're using there, they might be a bit complex. Just think of that. Don't change it, but just think of it, just think of the target audience, because actually it takes so much time to create such a rubrics table. Just think of the better you conceive it, the more useful it is and the more helpful for increasing of literacy. So this is a really crucial point of your teaching and of your initiative for learning, for increasing specific literacies. And I talk about that not only related to new literacies, I talk about that related to all the topics you're going to teach as a teacher or help enhance skills at any level, One task I would like to give you, to all of you, the groups, mainly to go back to this rubrics and have a look at your rubric again. Related to the things we discussed now, there might be some slight improvements. And in order to improve your rubrics, because we all have actually the same task, the task was to assess an e-portfolio and create rubrics for that. Just have a look to others and try to improve yours. You know, maybe by changing the names of the categories, maybe by helping to adapt the cells. Just go through it and try to improve your rubrics. Of course, you don't have to just you don't have to show me that you improved, but I think it's something that may be helpful for you to get a bit skills in creating such assessment basics. So because we mentioned, or I mentioned, that being able to have a qualitatively high standard assessment, and this is based on such rubrics, try to improve by improving your rubric table you created. Of course, we won't talk about that later. If you have some questions related to improvement, please feel free to contact me and ask how your improvement may take place. The idea is, for me, the way to do it, you go and have a look to other rubrics, because there are, you know, the categories are almost similar. Some formulation, I think they are more precise. They are more really distinct one from the others. Some categories are more interlacing, which is more difficult. So let's try to have really distinct categories and try to describe the cells of the matrix the way that not only you as teacher can understand, but also your target audience. That's it. Thank you very much. I think you've done good work for all the things creating rubrics. I think you learned something about the importance of assessment, the way of assessment, also the opportunities you can use it, not only at the end for a summative way, but also during the learning process in a formative way.
Thank you.
That's it. And now I think we continue. If you agree, we don't make a break, so you have a bit more time for at the end of the lessons to have the break and to work on the task of the next session. Actually, I never asked you about that. Is that okay for you, or you prefer to have a 10 minutes break in between? Up to you. For me, it's fine, but I keep going. Yes, okay. One last. I will keep going. If it's just one, then I keep going. Two of you, yeah, keep going. Okay. Well, I continue, and I think for you then having time at the end for whatever you need. It's also nice for preparing the last assessment. I go back, not the assessment, the task of the next lesson. I go back and try to share my screen, because now it's all about stories, and I go to this. Yes, let's share the screen, and it is which screen I want to share. Oh, where is it? This screen I want to share. No, not all the. I cannot find the screen. Where is it? Okay. No, it's not here. I have to close some windows because I think I get too much open. So you can see. Okay, let's try again. Okay. Sorry for the delay. I cannot share the screen at the moment. Something seems not to be really. Not this one, not this one, not this one. Where is my screen? I have to close some other. I have too many windows open in my thing, so it doesn't work so good. Okay. Okay. Let me try again. Here it is. Now I could find the screen I had all. So we go and continue presentation. Now it's all about stories. We know we created, if you have in mind, the first artifact was actually a meme you created for enhancing or discussing and reflecting about visual literacy. And there we used specific static image. It was a picture or two pictures, static image, in order to have a look at the way you could communicate information using this specific artifact. In the second lesson, the second task was about creating a digital poster, which allows actually to combine like sort of a image layer with more text than the meme and having some links going to somewhere else, which is actually is sort of a multi-layer image you're using. The meme should be a monolayer image, while the poster may have different artifact types combined, like the image, the poster, and then the links leading to some additional information, work, whatever you want to have. The third task was about creating some multidimensional artifact, which is a hypertext. And there, of course, I was trying to emphasize on the navigation, because there you have actually a crucial element, a crucial layer with it, which is actually added to a multi-layer image, because every and each page of your hypertext may be actually sort of a multi-layer image, like a digital poster you have there in your web page. You can have text, you can have images, you can have memes, you can have links, you can have embedded videos. So the multi-dimension is something important about this type of artifact, which is called hypertext. And there you have other meanings and other importance of different elements, like the navigation. For the next lesson, I would like to talk about a dynamic multimedia artifact. Of course, such a dynamic multimedia artifact may be part of a hypertext. This specific multimedia dynamic artifact I want to talk about today is a digital story. And I talk about the story because this has actually something very, a deep impact on the way we learn. If you go back many, many thousand years, I mean, in the prehistoric area, where we didn't have the opportunity to make engravings on caves, then the only way to learn and to trade traditions was by talking, by telling stories. And this is actually one thing which is quite an old way. And of course, nowadays, for our course, we don't just want to tell stories. We want to use sort of a digital background in order to tell stories even more effectively, more learner-centered, whatever, in another context. We will talk about theoretical framework, types of narratives. Then we will talk about the power of different elements, like the acoustic element, the voice, or the image, the light, the wording. And then actually, as an activity, you will have to create such a digital story for the next week. Traditional storytelling, that was I was talking about, it was in the prehistoric time. It was the only way to learn, to trade customs and proceedings of the daily life from one generation to the other. Beside of showing, like how to make out of a bone a knife, the mother or the father showed and the daughter or the son learned, but also by explaining the efficiency or how to really to elaborate this tool. That was a very important element. And of course, you know, back to the prehistory, that once the fire has been discovered by humankind or dominated by humankind, there was like sort of gathering around the fire and telling stories about the life and about the experiences. And this was something which really created deeply helped to develop our cultural heritage and also our learning habits. And of course, also genetically, I would say we are wired in order to learn in an effective way by listening, viewing, experiencing stories. So that means also for a learning process, this storytelling is something which is relevant. From the constructive point of view, if you go back to a constructive learning theoretical background, the fact of listening to story is something which may be efficient for a learning purpose, but even more in order to be able to create and to tell a story in a good way, enhances the deep learning experience. So not listening is something good, or watching, listening, participating is something good to a story which has been told. It's something good for a learning process. Creating, developing such a story, doing it, creating it by himself from the scratch is something which is even better as a learning from the learning perspective. So if you use this artifact as well, digital story, then with your learners, your students, whatever the target audience you want to educate for digital literacy, not only showing them such stories may enhance their skills, it is much better if you give them a topic which is related to what they want to learn, and they have to create this story. And of course, in order to create stories, you have to know, get some information about what is a story, how can it be done, what tools can be used for, and what is the theoretical background behind the story. So we see here what are traditional storytelling. You use reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And that was what I was mentioning, once you sit around of the fireplace in the prehistoric way. Nowadays, we have sort of fireplaces, digital fireplaces, you call them like TED Talks. And actually, if you want to experience the power of such storytelling, then you may really listen to the first link I show you here about Andrea Gibbs, who talks, it's very funny, about the way, it's really like, it's not, the topic is far away from what we are talking now, but the way she experiences, or she builds up the story, it's very funny, very engaging, and also, of course, very entertaining. And then the second part, how words change minds. The science of storytelling, this video is rather more related to the tools you would talk about. Okay. We go now to the digital storytelling. What is about digital storytelling? If you create a digital story, of course, you enhance your digital literacy, and of course, you enhance your digital strategies in order to create this digital story. And as well as that, you also enhance like skills related to use of multimedia, because this is a multimedia context. You have text, you have images, you have videos, and you have special lights effects, which is also like sort of dynamic images, which has another also another structure, and also another way of being used in an effective manner. So what is a digital story? Of course, it's that's a bit bad, but still a working definition. It's a product of a digital storytelling, of course, a digital artifact. So it can be a photo story, a slideshow video, a conventional media, a multimedia sonnet, a radio with pictures, a digital explanation, and so forth and so on. So all these artifacts are digital stories. It can also be a combination of old storytelling with new technologies. So actually a talk which is enhanced with images or with videos or with sound or with whatever can also be, the whole of it can be a digital story. So actually a TED talk with slides can be a digital story, if this TED talk is recorded and presented over the web. Okay. What has been developed since 5, 6, 7 years? Creating such digital stories have become so much easier. If you compare the way of creating such multimedia artifacts, which combine effectively all these specific media types and use it in an appropriate way, 15 years ago, it would have taken a month for a professional team to create such a clip, which nowadays you can create within half a day, not as professional, using Powtoon, for instance. So really, the things as the digital skill set has developed so much. The tools have improved so far that nowadays even a secondary school student can create a Powtoon story, which a couple of years earlier he would have need to go to a professional shop and use professional software for thousands of US dollars or Hong Kong dollars in order to be able and spend a lot of time in order to be able to create the same thing. So that actually nowadays the ability to create digital stories is in the hand of primary or at least secondary schools kids. And of course, you should be able to use and to know about the way how to create specific, highly qualitative stories in order to have this message in a form of a digital artifact. this model shows actually how the digital storytelling may be a part of being digital, of digital humanities. Being a digital human actually implies being able to create effective and high quality good stories you present on the web. And of course, some humans are able to create just a text story by 140 digits, like some presidents, which is called a tweet. But others actually, even kids, should be able to enhance and empower the message they want to send over the web by all the elements which may be more engaging, more like sort of easier understandable by using the specific language which all type of media you use are efficient at. Means using images where an image says more than 1,000 words, using like sort of a specific lighting, using drama as music support in order to make the listener more attentive to the next step of the story, which from your point of view is the most important, more relevant. So it means really using all these elements and combine all of them in a good way, using this specific mixture is one part which really defines also is part of digital humanity. And of course, it increases digital skills. Like, so this triangle is relevant for the learning outcome. And in the center, we have the digital storytelling as element. This goes back on the literature, of a paper created by actually, I think you know her, Natalia Churchill. She is also a teacher at HKU, teaching a couple of other courses. Beside of she was teaching with me together this course, MLIM and MIT 6338, 3 years ago, before I taught other courses, and now I'm here back to this course as well. What are the benefits of digital storytelling? Of course, it can engage people. It can really center the student centeredness is enhanced. And it can support different learning styles, enhances creativity and research skills, increases focus on digital text, and of course, also supports like multimodal assessment strategy. Actually, for the assessment, of course, you can create rubrics. For the assessment of this storytelling, you will have a rubrics I prepared for the assessment of your story you will create next week. So you can also have a look when you create your story for next week. Have a look at what rubrics I think are relevant for having highly qualitative digital stories. Here's something also historically. You can read the text. So obviously, in all communities, in all cultures, stories evolved from the culinary experience. So like teaching how to cook is something quite widely spread for digital storytelling. So if you have a look at how many cooking videos you find on YouTube, I think it comes just after the amount of cat videos you find on YouTube is the cooking videos. Obviously, sharing a story about how to prepare meals is something which really all cultures which have access, of course, to this digital media like internet really think it's very important. And I think there is a lot of digital stories has been taught about how to create stinky tofu or how to create the best pasta pesto or whatever any culture you're addressing. What types of digital stories exist? We have here digital stories which are like personal, like I can like sort of make if I go if I apply for a job, I can make a personal digital story and then try to show up my personality or my being in order to really permit my potential employer to show my strengths, my weakness, my skills, my my beliefs. The other one, which is something important for learning purposes, you can have an informative digital story, trying really to formulate the story the way that your target audience is specifically addressed, using the specific metaphors, the images, the videos, the sounds they use, the background music they use. It can be scientific in order how to explain some concepts, models, structures, simulation, whatever. It can be show and tell, which is something rather on an entertainment basis. It can be a biographical. So about the biography of a scientist or of you or of your mom. It can be something which is used for political, religious, or other ethical sins in order to persuade someone to go to take your opinion. And of course, by the way, all types of storytelling you use, they should be persuasive. Which means if I make a scientific digital story and this is not persuasive or not understandable, then of course it has not the same value. And of course, the types of digital stories can be as many as the types of traditional stories. Per se, you can make out of any traditional story a digital story. The added value, digital storytelling means creating of such digital stories empowers people to be active. And of course, we know that such activities is relevant for learning, can be advocatory. So important to spread specific awareness of things that go right in the world, things that go wrong in the world, poverty, malnutrition, climate change, all the things that we should bother about in the coming years or now, pandemic. Then advertising, that is the other thing. The one is rather like showing what we should take care about, and the other thing is like showing what we should act, like try cleaning the beaches or whatever we could do in order to keep our environment friendly, how to enhance specific skills in your kids, can be a lot of things. And then, of course, it can be something to evaluate what happened before, like past events. So like having a view on a historical event and how this historical event led to different changes and how it has an impact on what happens today. Of course, as well, you can try to focus on specific perspectives in literature or also in science. If you have a look at different diverging theories in specific scientific topics, and you have a look how the scientists really try to describe their way of seeing things. And if you create a story about one scientist and a story about a scientist which has not the same opinion, by telling this story, you can like sort of really emphasize the different perspectives on science, but also in literature. Last but not least, digital storytelling empowers also like sort of entertainment. And you call that sort of entertainment, you can call it like infotainment. I don't know whether you're aware of the difference of the two terms. Entertainment is really just having fun. Infotainment is having fun with a specific goal, namely to get informed about the topic. So the fun part increases the motivation to digest the information which is actually given in this point. Now, you create a digital story. That means you create this story, and in order to create it in a professional way, you need to create a storyboard. This is a graphic organizer. You say, in my story, there will be these scenes, this narrative will be like that, and you will create a storyboard. This storyboard can also be sketched by hand, but of course we have tools, digital tools, which help you to create this narrative and help you to create the way that this narrative is efficient, effective, good, qualitatively good, and you think of the relevant points you need to incorporate in your story. This storyboards has to be is a sort of a pre-visualization of the digital story you create. Of course, the storyboard is also part of your artifact to create and part of the things you deliver for next week. This can be like sort of a digital storyboard, pen and paper storyboard. Of course, we have tools in order to create a bit more sophisticated storyboards, but this is actually enough. If you're good at sketching and you really write what are the things, how you want to use it, and of course, there is not only information about the narrative, there's also information about the way, the type of images you use, the sound effects you use, the background you use in order to really, or the music, whatever, in order to really enhance the quality of the message you want to transmit. Digital storyboards I have a link with the top 24 storyboard software of 2017. Actually, this link has been updated. Now it's 2021. Some are free, some are not. Please make sure that you don't tap into traps in order you have to pay. Make sure you test a storyboard tool and then you try to publish a storyboard at the end before you create a very sophisticated storyboard, because some of these tools are a little bit trapping. You know about these tools, you know, you can do everything besides of publishing, and then you have to pay. So just try to make an example with a very simple story, and then you publish it so you can have it without needing to register and to pay some fees for it. We have here some sample stories. Actually, this sample story about World War II, it has been created, I think, by the daughter of Natalia Churchill. And if you really want to look at this story about World War II, you have to register, you have to tell YouTube that you are older than 18. In order to that, you have to like scan your credit card or whatever. So just if you think that you, it's a good story, you can have a look at it, it's interesting, but make sure that you're aware that you have to give some data to Google in order to Google or YouTube in order to be able to see it. The other one, personal story. What I like about Hong Kong is like sort of a story about Hong Kong, visiting Hong Kong. I love this story because I'm a fan of Hong Kong, and I encountered a lot of places I've been, and I encountered a lot of situations I lived as well. So have a look about how actually by watching this video, how the narrative is built up, how the sounds are used, how text elements complement the image, and of course it's an art. And I think these two storyboards, digital stories, they imply quite a lot of time. Okay, 7 elements of digital storytelling. In 4 minutes, you get all the 7 elements in this video. Watch this video, it is very helpful. And of course, the evaluation of the storyboard should take place related to this element of qualitatively good storyboards. Of course, I have these elements not only in the video. These are the 7 elements you have to look at. You have to make sure of the point of view. What is the main point of the story? What perspective you take? Is the perspective of a kid, of an adult, of someone outstanding, of someone inside the story? Then dramatic question. It's something that has to create the drama and really be dramatic in order to really engage people. Try to attract the people not only in a cognitive way, but on an emotional way. Give importance to the voice, means modulate the voice, become calm, become silent when it comes to something which must be like treating this way, become violent and loud and fast if you want to increase the way of transmitting the message in an appropriate way. Then, of course, the power of the soundtrack, you know that if you have dramatic soundtrack, show dramatic images. Then the economy, of course, you need to have enough content, not overload the content. And then the pacing, that's also important. Also with the voice, the rhythm of the voice is a pacing, but also the rhythm of the amount of images which follow up has to be appropriate to the message you want to send. These are the 7 elements which are to be considered when you create this story. And of course, for your task, it should be good if you reflect these elements as well. The technological tools for digital storytelling, I have also there some tools I propose for you. Have a look about the creation. Of course, you have seen some already here in the videos, which are proposed by myself, and some are proposed by you. Powtoon is one of the tools that is often used. You can choose this one. There are other ones which are appropriate for that. There's a lot. It takes some time to get into such a tool. Take your time to dive into the mechanisms of such tool. But after a while, it really increases your digital literacy a lot by really spending some time in creating it. And this is actually a task which will take some time to evaluate the appropriate tool. So maybe you just sit together in the first phase of collaboration where you decide which tool you will use. And of course, then this tool should be appropriate from a specific point of view. There is actually also a possibility to collaboratively create digital stories. And there is one element which is called V-video. Try to think about that. we mentioned the importance of collaboration as a digital or new literacy, which has a very big importance for knowledge acquisition, for being able to learn online or with digital tools and concepts. Video is like Google Docs, where you can collaboratively edit text. You can there collaboratively edit video. Think of that, try it out. Maybe it doesn't fit for your requirements, up to you. And then you decide about what technology you prefer. So maybe one skill you should enhance in this week is also being able to discriminate. I like this technology because it gives me that. It enables me to do that. It is effective from that point of view. I gain specific literacies due to the things I've done using this software. Please be reflective. Think of what you learn by doing that. The topics you may use for the task of next week. It can be advocatory, spread awareness of important issues, poverty, global warming, whatever, advertise, evaluate something, create characters perspective, or entertain. So choose one of these topics and then try to create a digital story which has a high level of quality. High level of quality, how can you address that? You address that by having a look at the rubrics I prepared for you and published on the Moodle platform. There, I try to analyze what should be a highly qualitative, or try to show you up what is a highly qualitative digital story. We come to the tasks. Oh, sorry, this is a bit, the frame is not so good, it's too big, but at least you can use. You plan and create a digital story based on the given topic theme. You discuss about the purpose and the target audience. You make storyboards to plan your story. You decide on the technical tool. That means that you make an evaluation about the technical tools. You include multimedia, image, text, recorded narration, background music, transitions. Video footage not longer than 30 seconds. Duration not more than 4 minutes. Not more than 4 minutes. You would say, are you crazy? Of course, the shorter the better, the less time consuming. Be aware that once you have a story in mind, which is something you need some time to tell, and then creating a short, concise story sometimes takes more time than having 20 minutes time and then making the story like sort of bit boring. So not longer than 3 to 4 minutes. Of course, have a look at the sources, especially if you have sound, background sound, which is copyright protected. Be aware if you publish on YouTube, they will be cut. So you use Creative Commons music databases. There are lots where you can create sound, background sound, and background noises on the Creative Commons basis. Cite all the artifacts, all the images sources you use, all the sound sources you use, all the whatever sources you use. And of course, it has not to happen within the story. You can embed your story in your portfolio and there have like a link about all the sources, and there you cite all the things so the story remains concise, because in the story you have to mention that, or you mention on the YouTube on the comments all the things, the sources you cite, and there be aware of Creative Commons licenses. Of course, you export your video as an MP4 file or as a YouTube link, and you present your story using the template which is provided in Moodle. Whoa, I was quite quick and quite fast. I think now it's time for a break, and it's time for working in your groups. And first of all, do you have any questions about what I told you now before I give the stage free for the group work and for the break? I stopped the screen sharing, so maybe you can see each other. And I stopped also the recording. Okay, so we can now, sorry, I just check.